A very good morning, everybody. I hope you all are doing good. Happy Wednesday. We have everybody kind of slowly popping into the call. So thank you guys for showing up today. I think showing up for yourselves. We have 9 people on the call. Hopefully we'll get a few more to join as we get started over the next couple minutes. If you guys just want to catch up really quick, tell me what's going on, what's happening in your lives, what the weather's like in the part of the world that you're in, any of that stuff. I'd love to hear what you're up to. So if you guys want to, feel free to tell us what's happening. Anybody. How's the weather in Cancun, Mexico, Christian?
It's exactly the same as in Miami. We're a 30-minute flight away. But it's daunting with a little bit of shade and coolness, but no, at the end of the day, it's going to be hot and humid.
Yeah. Well, actually, my parents are in the Midwest. They're in Chicago right now, and they're getting tons of storms and tornadoes and hail and all sorts of craziness out there. So I feel blessed that we have the sunshine at least. Darren, are you on a ship right now, or where are you in this world?
Yes, I am on a ship. I am in Cadiz, staying on dry dock.
Oh my gosh. What ship?
Symphony of the Seas.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for joining, man. I know that you're busy. So I
I wanted to make an effort because I know it's an exciting call with lots of good things to do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, we have tons to go through today. So I'll give a couple more minutes for anybody else to join. Oh, good. Leroy joined us. Awesome. Anne, thanks for joining us. We have a lot of our regulars on the call, so really, really cool. Leroy, thank you for joining us. The last call that we did was 2 weeks. Last week we had C-Trade, so we skipped. And then the week before I was on a ship. So we had a spotty connection, but everybody, thank you guys for being super duper patient with me while we did that. Hey, and I hope you guys got a chance to watch the recording afterwards. So this call we are recording. So I think, Wilhelmina, good. I see the recording up there on the screen. So Wilhelmina is recording it for us, and then we'll send it out to anybody that missed it, or, we always appreciate you guys. If you have anybody in your network that could use any of this information, please share away. I was in contact with a gentleman. He used to be a cruise director, Robbie Williams. I don't know if any of you know him, but he runs the Crew Bar, which is a Facebook page, which I didn't connect that he ran that page. And I think they have 64,000 crew on that Facebook page, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, "Hey, Barbara, I wanted to reach out. I see what you're doing. And please use our page." And I said, I was hesitant because I think you have to be really respectful of those spaces, that I don't ever want to start spamming people with stuff that they're not necessarily interested in. So we're talking with them. I shared the post about the webinars, and so hopefully we'll get some traction there and just reach out to more crew. So on this call today, I really want to focus on a couple things. I want to tell you guys all about C-Trade, and then I'll tell you a little bit more details about C-Trade and what it means to you. And then I'm going to attempt to really smoothly bridge what that means to you as you are in the job search world. And again, this is all educational stuff about the industry, personal development stuff for you personally as you go on this journey, and then a company update. So right now we have our contract at legal with 2 major cruise lines. So super huge celebration. Yay. And thank you, Christian, for reminding me. At the bottom of the screen, you guys, where you see that little smiley face, that's where you guys can send little reactions. And then the hand is if you want to say something, you just click on the hand. So huge celebration that we're making movements forward. I was just yesterday in having lunch with another executive at one of the cruise lines. And she said to me, she's like, "Barbara, what can I do to help?" who can I introduce you to? What can I do? And I told her a specific cruise line I wanted an introduction to, and she was like, done. Got it. And then I said, well, there's this other person that I'm not getting a response of. And she's like, no problem. Send me an email. I'll connect you to it. So I'm just so grateful for the generosity of everybody that's out there, that's bubbling you guys up, bubbling every single former crew member up. And so I think we can't lose sight of these teeny tiny little micro movements that are helping us grow. So let's talk a little bit about Seatrade. So let me do my screen toggling over here. So for those of you who are not familiar with Seatrade, Seatrade is what I would really say as the largest cruise industry conference that is out there. And I think there's a ton of cruise industry conferences that are out there. Some are destination related, some are travel agent related. Seatrade is the one that kind of encompasses a lot. The cruise lines really respect the Seatrade organization because of how they report and how they represent the industry. CLIA is the organization that does a lot of advocacy. You saw them really bubble up, and CLIA also has one, but CLIA has their conference that tends to be focused on travel partners and travel agents. But Seatrade is kind of the conference where everybody comes together. It's cruise lines, it's industry leaders, it is suppliers, it's destinations, it's a lot of different people. So I wanted to take a chance it's usually in South Florida, and then they have another one in Europe. But the one that happened here was they talked about industry trends, innovations, and strategies that are happening in the cruise industry. And I'm going to go through each one of these in detail as it relates to you. But some of the themes that we saw bubble up this year was about sustainability and eco-friendly practices in the industry. That's something that is just like, it's this huge, in the state of the industry, it was sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. And Kelly Craighead from CLIA presented a lot about what the goals are. And Vago from MSC, he's the head of MSC, presented a lot about what the industry is doing and what they're committing to between now and 2050. Next is about health and safety protocols. While many of us want to ignore that a global pandemic happened, it's still out there as a topic that's really important to guests as a whole. Prior to COVID, the two reasons, or one of the major reasons why people chose not to cruise was about health. So they were concerned that they would get seasick or they would get norovirus. And then COVID obviously put another layer into this. And so there's just this continual conversation about health and safety. Next is digital transformation and technology, about how the industry is kind of, and I'll talk about this in detail, kind of moving out of this perception of being antiquated and what moves that they're taking into technology to develop the deliverance to guests. Personalized guest experiences, which that also connects to digital transformation, new ship launches and itineraries, industry collaboration and partnerships, market growth and emerging regions, and then a workforce development and diversity, which we can all raise our hands and relate to that 120%, because you guys are the workforce, or we're the former workforce, but looking at, I think, talent that was lost, talent that is currently coming in and needs to be developed, and then globally looking at where talent comes from. And we're not just talking about ship talent, but we're also talking about shoreside talent. So really cool, amazing panels. We tried to attend as much as we could. If you guys saw our emails, we did a sponsorship in one of the VIP areas, and we got to shake hands, exchange business cards with some really important, influential people. And every single person knew, understood, didn't need to get sold on what we were doing. They're just like, how can we talk more? How can we? I spoke to MSC. I spoke to Scenic Cruises, I spoke to NCL, I spoke to just so many major players within the industry that we're excited about what we're doing. So I'm going to walk through each one of these, but you guys please feel free to raise your hand, and Christian, please stop me if anybody raises a hand or makes a comment while we're going and I miss it, because I'm like going with 3 screens here. So please, you guys, just raise your hand if there's any questions. Feel free to interrupt me. So I really want to transition this to the topic is navigating career opportunities for former cruise ship crew members, and I want to take Seatrade insights, new horizons for you, and then helping you connect the hot topics for the industry to what that means for your career. So I think one of the most important thing is that as a crew member, you have developed and really valuable skills. You have customer service. You have really, really intense communication skills, from verbal communication skills to conflict, to written, teamwork, problem solving. These skills are something that we have to ensure that when you guys are going through the interview process, when you're going through the preparation of job transition, is that you're able to, in the interviews, give very specific examples of instances when you use skills that, and I, being a former crew member and dealing with, super complex, from one of my favorite was Brilliance of the Seas, when all of the pilots went on strike and blocked the entrance to the port. And we had to sit out for, I think, like 13 hours floating. And we had angry guests on the pier and angry guests on the ship. Having those examples right at the top of your talk track, that you're able to, most people in their careers don't ever have to deal with a situation like that. And sometimes when you don't do the full preparation for your interview, or you don't go through kind of your archive of experiences, it's hard to come up with those things on the spot. So I really challenge you, as you start thinking about your interview skills and as you start remembering even some of those memories that you kind of buried back into the archives, bring those up, write them down, jot them, and go, okay, when somebody asks me a question like, tell me about a situation where you dealt with conflict, that you're able to go, let me tell you a great story, and quickly and swiftly transition and practice that story and have it something that's on the top of your tongue. So just make sure that when you're communicating, when you're getting that niche of the industry, that you're able to tie it to the position. And I think one of the things that the tips that I would always use when I was doing job interviewing is I would look, and what we will provide you all is anytime we have a job posting, we're going to put the actual job qualifications or the specifications to the job. So it may be, let's look at a customer service related job. Deal with, like irate or angry guests and resolve their situation in the right So you would take that bullet from the job description, you would immediately have a storyline or an answer and you refer back. You say, hey, Christian, in the job description, I saw that I had to deal with it. Let me tell you a story about a situation when I had to do that. So just really making sure that you have those stories top of mind. So the next one is about sustainability and eco-friendly practices. So the conference talked about this, and cruise lines are really showcasing their latest efforts to focus on carbon emissions, minimizing waste, and adopting clean energy sources such as LNG and fuel cells. So this is like really, really cutting edge technology that they're working on. And it may not be a part of your talk track right now, but what is very, very cool is that cruise ships have prepared you in a way. Just think about what happens down in the incinerator room. Think about the separation of garbage. Think about recycling. Think about so many things that become an innate part of your DNA when you work on board a ship. Being able to pull out those examples and say, hey, yeah, sustainability and eco-friendly practices are part of your life as a crew member. So being able to talk to those items, most industries, and even I could argue many positions within the cruise industry that are not exposed to what happens on board the ship in terms of sustainability, that they don't have that smooth of a talk track. So make sure that, because this is such a hot topic for the industry, that you're weaving that into what you're doing, because you're going to see that coming out in any of the annual reports that are coming from the cruise lines. So them talking about what they're doing in terms of green. You're going to hear a lot about ecotourism, renewable energies, about waste management. And unfortunately for the cruise industry, many people still have in their memory, it has to be 30 years ago, these videos of a cruise line throwing garbage over the side of the ship. People still have those images in their brains. And so when you're able to debunk what may be a bias for the industry. Go back to what I said about the health being one of the reasons people don't cruise, is being able to say, no, the cruise industry is really leading in sustainability and eco-friendly practices. And let me give you a few examples of how I witness that in my day-to-day life. So make sure that you guys, anytime you see articles that are posted by Seatrade, articles that are posted by suppliers, because also think about this paralleling over to other job opportunities. This eco division that is bubbling up, and at Seatrade, we saw booth after booth with fuel systems to recycling systems. There are suppliers that are out there that are looking for your talent to be able to bring that into their sales channel, to say, hey, yeah, I know what the ecosystem exists. I had a great conversation with a payroll company that they were at the show. They didn't have any cruise clients. They were at the show because they had interest in getting into the cruise business. And I was just telling them, hey, do you know the value that one of my team members could bring to your organization? And they were like, oh, we never thought of that. So just keep on poking into who are the people that are showing up to these shows, who are the people that are growing. And this is a field that I would challenge you to educate yourself on, because this conversation is going to continue and continue and continue. And it's really remarkable what the industry is doing. So sorry, I could talk about sustainability for like all of this call, if you let me, because I cannot emphasize how important it is for you guys to understand what it means. So the next one is health and safety expertise. So at Seatrade, cruise lines presented their updated health and safety measures in response to COVID. They talked about vaccination requirements, about onboard testing, enhanced sanitation practices, and then the safety of passengers and crew. It was much less than it was at last year's conference. I'll say that. It kind of took a back burner, but you still saw at the conference people with masks on. You still saw people. You still knew that COVID existed. So I think what's a really, really critical thing back connected to what I said about sustainability and eco is that what you as a crew member had gained in terms of health and safety knowledge onboard your time on ships, this is incredibly valuable for any industry. So think about what your duties are in, when an elevated level, whatever it may be called, if it's a color code on your cruise line, or if it's a level 1, 2, 3, you knew what your role is. You were exposed to training that you knew how to turn on a switch and you go, all right, this is what we do next. We have somebody in the restrooms, making sure people are washing their hands. We get rid of the tongs in the buffet. We have more people out there with hand sanitizer. There's all these switches that you turn on, and you were trained on it for years and years and years. And it's so automatic. But how do you take that experience and what you know about public health and translate that into your interview process and when you're looking for a position? It's not going to be translatable for every single one, but look at, there was suppliers that were at Seatrade. There was a dental supplier, so they do dentist care for crew members. There was medical insurance for crew members. There was so many sanitation companies either trying to sell their sanitation products or their hand sanitizer dispensers. There were so many parallels, and your experience in understanding the procedures and the policies that cruise lines hold is something that is incredibly valuable for someone that is in the cruise industry as a supplier or would like to grow into that. So that is incredibly valuable, and I think will continue to be on the radar. Next one is digital transformation and technology. And this being on board a cruise ship, I feel like crew members don't get the full spectrum of what cruise lines are doing in this space. And it's pretty phenomenal. So cruise lines at Seatrade, there was a couple of panels specifically that they talked about their adoption of cutting edge technologies. And the goal was an enhanced guest experience. So cruise lines are looking at things like artificial intelligence, AI-powered customer service. They're looking at virtual reality experiences. I know there was at least 2 suppliers that were presenting virtual reality experiences. Even look at Royal Caribbean, you know, in their new builds and some of their innovation labs, they have virtual reality experiences, so they can build out a stateroom, they can build out an area of the ship and create it in virtual reality before the ship is actually built. Augmented reality applications, and then also layering this onto smart ships. There was this really, really cool mock-up of a bridge. It was like the future of a bridge on board a ship. And it was, the whole thing was digital, everything was screens. And it's very different to what many of us had seen in, you know, bridges on the Sovereign of the Seas when my first contract. So it's not only the cruise lines are investing, and right now many, you know, I know Royal Caribbean specifically, they have an entirely separate office that is solely focused on digital transformation. They have people that they are bringing from the technology industry, bringing from hospitality industry in, that those people are sitting in a separate location because they have to be the innovators. So making sure that you look at every single area of the industry and what you worked in, and ensuring that you're reading up on what's happening in the AI space, what's happening for this industry that has a perception of being antiquated. You know, people tend to think that, oh, cruising is older. No, what we are seeing coming out is, you know, everything from high-speed internet to internet and destinations to look at the CPAS cards, the stateroom cards for Virgin Voyages. It's a wristband now with a little fob on it. They're looking at how do we remove friction for the guests? How do we make technology easier and faster for transactions, for customer service, for health reporting? So there's so many things that digital transformation is changing, and just make sure that you're looking at what's out there and you're looking at how you can layer this onto what your skills are. I look at anybody that came from IT on board a ship, anybody that came from administration on a ship. You have the opportunity to look into digital marketing, to look into data analytics. There's so many jobs that are out there, and you can add tremendous value in any parts of these organizations. So the next one is personalized guest experience. So this is kind of a nice segue between digital and technology and like robots running everything to personalized guest experiences. The conference talked a lot about creating, really the importance of creating unique and tailored experiences for guests. So this is where, you know, some of the roles that we're looking at for you, the personalized shore excursion sales, some of this cruise sales. How do we cruise lines create tailored experiences, custom itineraries, personalized onboard services, and this all being driven by data and analytics? We should be able to capture the data of knowing what guest behaviors are. So knowing that this guest on every single cruise purchases a wine package, or likes this type of food, or likes to book in these types of restaurants. That data and that analytics allow us information to preempt what a guest desire would be. So the entire industry is looking at how can we create tailored and authentic experiences and create more luxury experiences for guests on board, and have it not feel like we're such a big brand. The more we can customize it, the more that it can be personalized, the more chances that a guest is going to engage. So let's look at that, a guest that spends money on art. We want to make sure that we provide personalized custom experiences for that guest. And on the other side of it, look at a guest that wants nothing to do with art, but wants to be fully immersed and spend money in the spa. So how do we target our communication in a way, digitally and physically, so that we provide a connection to individuals? So this may look like you being a pre-cruise concierge that's focused on spa, for example, because you used to work in the spa, you know the spa inside and out, you know that this guest has a propensity to spend in the spa, but they just want somebody to handhold them through their appointment process. And then look at private destinations. So you have guests that are booking the world cruise, for example. They don't want to, they're spending a lot of money to go on this 275-day voyage. And they don't really have any interest in scrolling through a website to choose their shore excursions. They want to have a concierge like one of you that's going to come to them and say, hey, you know, the Smith family, we see that you're booked. We see that you look like this. Tell us what your budget is for your excursions and let us put together a package for you. I met 2 specific companies that they've spun off, and they just do that. So for me, that was a really, really cool and customized thing, because people are willing to spend on their vacations in a way that is just blowing away cruise lines. And then that caveat to is, as cruise ships are getting bigger, they're demanding personalized experience and attention. And that's where we can match you to positions that fit that. So the next one is about industry collaboration and partnerships. So one of the things that we saw was the need, and everybody, and I just loved hearing this on the stage, when the cruise executives during the State of the Industry said, we don't see each other as competitors. We see other vacations as our competitors. So they were saying, we see all-inclusives, we see propensity to cruise as our competitor. So I don't know the numbers off of the top of my head, but it's a tiny, it's in single-digit percentages of people that have cruised. And so they're looking at that massive group of people who they don't understand cruising. They don't have an adversity to it. They don't understand it. They've just always done this other type of vacation, and they're open to cruising, but they need somebody to educate them on it. And then also destinations. So we saw this collaboration in a lot of the conversations between cruise lines, between ports, like physical ports, and development of ports, destinations, suppliers, and all of them working collaboratively to drive innovation, sustainability, and grow the industry as a whole. So think about it. When a cruise line invests in a specific port, you all have probably seen it. You saw what Falmouth became. Developing, working with a local government, and saying multiple cruise lines coming together and saying, hey, we need more destinations. We need something that has this, this, or this. Then being able to go out there, work with port developers, work with actual destinations. And I really see is reaching out then to former crew within these destinations and cruise lines to say to us, hey, we're going to grow a port in, Dominican Republic on this side of the island. Let's go try and find any former crew members that we have in that area that can help project manage or help oversee this for us. Or other former crew members who are willing to travel and have the skills and the expertise to help oversee projects like that. So I thought that was a really, really cool shift, I would say, in the competitive nature that maybe historically we've seen. This networking, the fostering of connections, and it just can't be overstated how important these connections are to other job opportunities. So by nurturing your relationships with your fellow crew members, with managers, with suppliers that work with cruise lines, and even with guests who may be connected to the industry, you can really, really very, very quickly create this beautiful professional network. And I would tell you guys, please, I think we're connected on LinkedIn. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, shame on you, we need to be connected. Is that go through my LinkedIn and start looking at people. And if there's somebody that you see that's interesting, that has a business in your city, or there's someone that has something that is of interest to you that fits within your skill set, send me a message and say, hey, Barbara, could you introduce me to this person? If I can, I would be happy to. But start repeating that pattern as you look in your job search, and don't forget the value of that. And I'll just tell a story about, I got a chance to connect to Starboard. We're having Starboard runs the shops on board many of the cruise lines, the majority of the cruise lines, I would say. They now do the port and shopping program for a lot of the cruise lines. But a lot of the executives that are at Starboard used to be at Royal Caribbean. I worked for many of them. And so just maintaining those connections with those people, going to their talks, engaging in their posts, connecting to their brand. Starboard just did a rebranding. They did a whole new logo. It was a very cool story. So just engaging in those posts, saying, oh, this is cool, I love this, connecting to the people, especially if you see a picture of anybody that works for those companies, congratulations on your growth, whatever that may be. Make sure that those partnerships are staying alive. And literally, it takes a couple engagements, do 1 or 2 engagements a day with somebody and do 3 posts a week, and you will see very, very quickly the impact that it has on you. So the next conversation, and I kind of had 2 topics I want to cover in this because I want to be really conscientious of time and talk through some of these, because we have 8 topics that we went through on this, but I want you guys to have the opportunity at the end of this call to ask any questions that you may have. And then I really want you to feel no question is a dumb question. I want you to say, Barbara, I didn't understand this. I don't know how this relates to me. And either I'll make something up, just kidding, or I'll try and bridge you to something that could get you to understand it. So market growth in emerging regions. So the conference explored the potential for growth in emerging markets. So looking at Asia, Africa, and I think that it's looking at destinations where people have a desire to go to, but as well as continued expansion of the industry and established market. So the cruise industry is, the traveler as a whole wants to see the world. And you can see this by, Royal Caribbean doing a world cruise. So many world cruises coming out from the smaller cruise lines. There is a cruise line that opened, it's a Greek cruise line. It's a tiny cruise line, and they're advertising that you can book a world cruise for $30,000, something like that. There's another one that they're selling the real estate. It's called Storylines. And it's really cool to look at what they're doing is that they're selling the staterooms. You can buy the entire stateroom and you own it like you would own a condo building, but you can also kind of timeshare it. So you can own it with 4 other people. So there is this demand with the expansion of virtual work and with people building their wealth, but they want to spend their wealth. They don't want to sit on it in 401ks anymore. They want to go out and have life experiences. And I'm reading a book right now, which is phenomenal. Sorry, we digress. It is called Die with Zero, Getting All You Can from Your Money. And it's by Bill Perkins. And the guy is writing about how there's this demand right now for people to be spending their money and experiencing life, to hike the Himalayas, to do everything that's on their list and not wait till their retirement to do it. And so how they are budgeting their money to be able, and the cruise line validated this in what all of the CFOs and all of the chairmen and CEOs spoke about, is that people are spending. And not only are they spending on their vacation, but they're spending on board. And we just have to keep up. And this is what ties to the market growth and emerging regions. So they are being challenged. Travel is no longer about, and you guys know from any social media platform that's out there, travel is no longer a cruise to the Caribbean. It's going, what exotic, cool place can you take me within my vacation days? So it could be, I have 3 weeks vacation, but my employer is going to let me work remotely for 1 of those weeks. So people taking these mini sabbaticals, these extended things. There's a guy on Instagram that I followed where he takes your vacation days and the public holidays, and he basically helps you map it out so you can maximize. And those are the things that are starting to happen, which is so incredibly interesting. So cruise lines are being challenged to focus on unique destinations. I would also connect that to theme cruises. There's so many charter companies that are out there right now, and they are booming, from specific rock bands to crafting experiences to religious and belief systems to immersive cultural experiences. So I really do believe that we're going to see more and more culinary type of trips coming out. And they may start in groups being driven by travel agents, but eventually cruise lines, I believe, are going to go more to these half charters and full charters of these experiences. And I know every crew member cringes because you know what it's like to have to do a customized cruise, and it's a pain in the rear. But we really have to adapt to people grouping together and planning trips. So as a former crew member, don't limit your job opportunities to just cruise line work. Look at what is out there in terms of groups that are being formed, charters that are being formed, regions that are being tapped into. And just look at new to cruise. You're going to see that those coming into the industry the first time is they're going to be exploring ships and destinations in a way that is so exciting. So they're going to choose to go on a cruise that goes to these destinations just because it fits within to their small vacation time. Maybe they didn't ever want to cruise, but because what cruise lines are pushing into gives them that chance. And then last but not least, which is kind of what's critically meaningful for us, and we absolutely loved seeing this, was there was so many panels. And there was one, the last day had a nice focus on it, was the importance of recruitment, of training, and of retaining a diverse and skilled workforce in the industry. And this is where we come in, like a knight on a shining horse, or whatever, a shining knight on a white horse, something like this, is that we are able to walk into this industry and say, hey, we have a whole group of people that are waiting for opportunity. So during COVID, we all know that the industry lost a significant amount of talent, but most of that talent loves the industry so much that they're willing to come back in some way, shape, or form. So they're talking about how do we recruit and educate people about the industry. And the panel that I spoke on was, we talked about working on board a ship, and really my journey from shipboard to shoreside is never sitting on your laurels. It's going, all right, I got this job. I understand it. What's my next gig? What's my next gig? What's my next gig? How do I continue to learn so this industry can educate me? So taking and saying, I can add value to a cruise line with providing this skill set that has to do with customer service, providing this skill set that has to do with sales. I look at, anyone who works in sales on board a ship, from a shoppy to an art auctioneer to a future cruise person, you have a resiliency to get the door slammed in your face. It has to be like 75 times a day, maybe, I would say. And most sales industries don't have anything like that. It's like the old school fax machines when people would go and try and sell the encyclopedias or the fax machines door to door. That's what a ship gives you in such a teeny tiny point in time. So being able to identify those specialized skills that you have and bring it to an industry, and being able to talk to it and give really, really great examples. Just that tidbit that I said is that going, how many times you were rejected when you worked in the shops on board, and how resilient you had to become as an individual by honing that side of yourself, and talk about how it was difficult in the beginning. And I look at mine because I worked in entertainment, so mine was being on a microphone. I can remember the first time I got on a microphone and my knees knocking. And then to the end where, now I can go stand on a stage, I can talk to whomever, and because it's like a muscle, you just learn it and you practice it and practice it and practice it. And so identify what are those really special traits that you have, those really special, unique traits that you have, and push yourself to ensure that you have your talk track prepared. So work on the talk track, communicate the diversity of the types of people that you worked with. So workforce development is one side, development and training and finding people that have talent. But the other side that the cruise lines are challenged on is making sure that they have a diverse workforce. I think that one of the things that we take for granted in working on a ship, because it just became a norm, is go through some of your teams. And in your job interview process, just talk about the different people. Hey, when I worked on this ship and this contract in this year, one of my coworkers was from India, one was from Turkey, one was from Costa Rica, and the other one was American. And so having to navigate some of the cultural differences between, I will never forget, I'm going to tell you guys a really funny story. And this gentleman, I don't barely even remember his name. It was one of my first contracts, and he signed on board. He was a cruise staff with me. He was from Eastern Europe. And every household he had ever grown up in had a bidet. And so he did not understand how he was supposed to stand on the toilet. Because he was so used to using a bidet. And we're like, what? This is not a story you should tell in your job interview, but you guys have stories like this. You have stories like this where you meet somebody that's culturally so different than you, and you have to very quickly bridge the gap and not laugh because it was so different. I grew up in the United States. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, Illinois. I'd never seen a bidet as outside of traveling to Europe, but he had grown up with bidets in his home, and he couldn't fathom how you could live without one. And so I just think that look and find these stories. My husband has a great story about the first time he ever hosted a youth activity, and something he said over a microphone that was hilarious. So look at these stories and just bridge them to say, hey, I had this relationship with this person and we couldn't communicate. And then we figured out it was a cultural difference and we were struggling because of X, Y, and Z reason. And this is how we recovered the relationship, because it begins to show your diversity. I once had a DJ that worked for me that he was struggling with mental health. And so when somebody says, hey, tell me about a difficult situation that you dealt with as a leader, you can say, hey, I had somebody that had come from his home country. He was in a new environment, a new language, missing his family. And he knew he didn't want to go home, but he was so shaken up over this shift that he had had culturally that I had to do X, Y, and Z to get him through it. So take every single one of those experiences and make sure that you have those examples documented and you use them so you can stand out. Because again, back to the Barcelona and the 13 hours at sea, is that take those experiences, because most people don't get those in their career. So document them, practice them, and make sure that you're ready so you can stand out from other candidates. So these are my high level overview of C-Trade. There was so much. I would encourage you guys, if you're in Europe, if you're in the United States, and at any point in time you can go to any of these industry events, please make it a point to go. You will not miss out. We had actually Adina, who she's actually on the West Coast of the United States, so this call is really early for her. But girlfriend, I gotta call her out. She lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And I said, Adina, if you're looking for a job in the industry, you better come to C-Trade. She booked a flight, she booked a hotel, she bought a ticket, and she showed up. And she was networking her tail off. And it was so cool to see. So I would encourage you guys is that as we have jobs coming into our pipeline, as we're right in our startup, make sure that you're using these free resources that are out there, be it look at conference notes, be it look at summaries of sessions. Make sure that you're educating yourself on what the industry is talking about. And then obviously please share us with anybody that's within your network who you think that could use development, could use guidance, could use honing of their skills, because that's what we're here for. I am hopeful that we should start seeing our job postings coming online within the next month. So if you already have a profile on our website, please just go in there, upload your photo, make any edits. We've uploaded all of your CVs or your experience information, but if you want to build off of anything or edit, go in and check it. Christian's going to be the one who's in contact with all of you as we move forward. So please make sure that you reach out to him if you're having any questions, doubts, how to position yourself. Wilhelmina is our guru on the platform. So if you get stuck with cookies of the website, then reach out to Wilhelmina. but we have some really, really great positions that are coming in the pipeline. So thank you for being patient, and thank you for continuing to show up for us. But I want to open this up for questions, and you guys feel free to turn on your cameras and unmute yourself. And I want to hear updates, what you guys are up to, if there's any support we can provide, if there's anything that you're seeing coming down the pipeline or you need guidance on, raise your hand, and please don't be shy. If not, I'm going to make Christian sing and dance.
Somebody please ask a question.
Tell me. Let me look at who I have on here. Michelle, you're always good to give me some content. Paolo, you've been quiet. You usually have a lot of comments, so I want to hear. Are you good? Maybe not. Yes.
Oh,
Michelle.
hi. I just want to say I'm so excited about the opportunities that are going to be coming our way. I've done a lot in the last couple of weeks to prepare myself for the upcoming interviews. And I've been taking some writing courses as well, corporate skills and social etiquette, professional note-taking, project management courses, anything I can think of to better myself and to add to my resume. Just wondering if you have any suggestions for courses or training that would certainly benefit us with the types of prospects that are going to be coming.
That's great. Great question, Michelle. Congratulations. Keep doing the work. You're awesome. Yeah, I don't think Michelle has missed a webinar yet. Development is part of who you are in your DNA, so good for you for showing up. So I will send out, actually, in the recap when we send the recording, I just caught light. There's a university that I found in the US that is actually a free university. You can get a business degree, and it was really cool, and they're partnered with Harvard and a couple others. And I thought that concept was cool, even if you don't go for a degree, but there's so much content that's out there. And I would really encourage everybody to make sure that you're getting some level of education in the sustainability and eco space or in the AI space. Attend webinars, start following individuals who are looking at AI. It's really, really important that we don't get left behind generationally in these areas. So start looking at who is talking about it. Look to reputable publications. So look in Forbes, look at Inc., look at some of those who are the individuals that are teaching it. And most of the content is free that's out there in terms of, and I would guess that on this university, they're probably putting some courses up there. And I would also, I'm a huge audiobook person and a physical book. If you haven't read this book, John Maxwell, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. I read this book like I think every single year. And it's really a leadership book, but it's talking about like some of the key points is like consistency, intentionality, curiosity, modeling. There's so many great things that it's to educate yourself, but also it's to help improve your talk track. Is that make sure that you're using language that that leadership can go, oh, I see more in this person than just, but you have to have the content to be able to talk to it. So, and John Maxwell just came out with a new book about communication. I would start with this one though first. But great question, Michelle. Cool. Any other questions? Queries? No? All right. Well, you guys stay engaged, keep commenting, keep sharing, keep reposting articles. And again, this is for that one crew. I look at life as one. So it's for that one individual that is out there, that crew member that feels lost. It's for that one person that thinks no one will hire them. It's for that one person that keeps getting rejected at the interview or keeps getting ghosted in applications. That it's just make sure that you're seeing, because I can only do so much. Christian can only do so much. The network, the collaborative network of the 200 plus people that we have within our group, if every single one of us connected to a former crew member to speak life into them, to encourage them, to provide them some tidbit, be it a book recommendation or something that we talked about in this webinar, because sometimes when you're going through this job search journey, you can feel very, very lonely and very unvalued and very unseen. And so just challenge yourself today, make one connection to one person, respond to their LinkedIn, make a comment, encourage them, because those little micro things make a huge, huge difference. So thank you guys for attending. Next week, we will be online again. Again, please write me if you have any recommendations for topics you all want to hear. We are here, and thank you for continuing to show up for yourself. Appreciate you guys. All right, take care. Bye.